Gents, finally, the Cricket World Cup, lest we forget. That starts very soon. And the Proteas winning their warm-up game against Sri Lanka, shortened because of bad weather conditions. Bit of good old New Zealand rain. But yeah, Rob, what can we take from that? I see De Kock scored some runs.
Yes, that was the big one, of course. He didn't take his opportunity to put a few runs in the bank sort of when he came in at the tail end of the West Indies series. So he needed to have some middle time. So it's very good that he got a 60-odd and would have just, got used to the idea of playing some expansive strokes again, because he will be one of our yet another of our key sort of X-factor guys that we'll be relying on for sort of, to really sort of score quickly. He's not a sort of anchoring batsman. He's a real stroke player, and so confidence will be a big thing for him. And it was good to see him get some runs. The fact that it was a Duckworth-Lewis is probably not a bad thing. I think it's quite good to almost train for a Duckworth-Lewis. We know from history in a certain Kingsmead game at the 2003 World Cup how Duckworth-Lewis sort of strategizing can come home to haunt you if you haven't done your homework properly. And so every now and then it's useful to just get a little sort of tester for that. Maybe you could say we're a little bit lucky, because I see we'd already lost about 5 wickets, I think, Aaron, when we got over the line with a significantly reduced target. So obviously fewer overs, but sort of we didn't have to chase the 250 or 260 or whatever it was. But the fact that South Africa won was very good. Apparently there were a few little setbacks along the way. Every now and then sort of a partnership would break, and then another wicket would fall, and another wicket. And yet South Africa did get across the line. So that was very good for them from a mental point of view. And we'll keep the whole dreaded sort of choker thing a little bit at bay, because you can bet that once they cross into Australia, that word will hit them in the face, whether they like it or not. The Aussie media are going to prey on that big time.
Aussie fans too.
And Aussie fans, yeah. The one negative, I think, was that I noticed that Farhan Behardien bowled 2 overs for 20 runs. He's supposed to be, of course, this slightly awkward kind of mixed fifth bowling element with JP Duminy. The question is, can you buy a full 10 overs out of those two? You feel a bit more confident about JP being able to give you, say, 5 or 6 or 7 overs. But is Behardien really the man to be able to bowl those little dibbly-dob medium paces? He went for 20 in 2, whereas Wayne Parnell, I saw, got, I think, 2 for 44. So he's just running into a little bit of a sort of form, and it's just possible that Russell Domingo and company might be sort of leaning a little bit more towards that sort of bowling all-rounder than a sort of batting all-rounder of sorts. So maybe you might find that Parnell starts to come a little bit closer to the equation, the sort of first team, if you like. Of course, in these games, you're allowed to play your 14 or 15, aren't you, in these warm-up games? So you're not really having to nail down an 11. But when we have to do that for the first game against Zimbabwe, I'm mighty interested to see who occupies that problematic number 7 slot. And I'm just wondering if maybe things are moving a little bit towards Parnell at this stage.
Garen, what final tweaks do you think the Proteas need to make? It does seem like there are more question marks over our bowling attack than our batting.
Absolutely. When you just look at the facts, we've got 15 players there, we have to pick 11. So 4 guys are going to have to miss out. So it's not really rocket science who's going to fill in. The batting order is pretty much established already. De Kock throws a little bit of a curveball coming in there, because we've had old Riley Rousseau and Hashim Amla's scoring heavily in the recent series against the West Indies. So something's going to have to happen at the top of the order. We've got 2 spinners there. Only one of them's going to play. So it's Tahir or Pangiso really. And as Rob said, I'm leaning sort of towards Parnell. It gives you the variation of the left arm over. I don't really know if there's a place in ODI cricket these days for medium paces. You've got to offer something more, either speed or spin. It's sort of like a let-off couple of overs for the batting team when you're facing this medium pacer who isn't really swinging the ball too much, isn't really doing anything with the ball. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bahadin does miss out. 12th man at best, I think, for him. Certainly in the matches against the weaker opposition, he might get a shout. We tend to pick our starting 11 and then just stick with them. So whether it's against an Australia, India, or UAE or Scotland, depending on who we're actually playing, which isn't ideal, I don't think. I think because if there is an injury, and we've seen JP Duminy and Quinton de Kock pick up freak injuries in warm-up for a match. So when something like that does happen, you want to know that at least somebody has already played at the World Cup and is going to get fit in seamlessly into the lineup. So I'd like to see some changes. Starting against Zimbabwe, we should beat them fairly easily. So Bahadin might get a start there. But I'm not sure later on in the tournament when we want some variation with maybe the left arm, you might see Parnell coming into the mix.
Okay. Thanks, James. I'm sure I'll be chatting to you later in the week to preview the big weekend ahead.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Nick.
All right, cheers.